This is Shu Hirata's Let's Talk Japanese Fight Sports with Charlie Jewett from sogokaku.com. Let's begin. Hey, good evening.
Good morning.
Good morning here, good evening there, and hi to everybody in States and all over the world. And we're back,
Yes.
and let's talk about let's speculate on Mikuru's opponent because there's going to be a press conference tomorrow.
Right.
At night, and one of my clients actually confirmed the fight too, so he will be there, which I can't mention. Yeah, and it seems like they're shifting a gear towards the way that since they don't really have any big single fight, since this is Otokomatsuri, it's like a men's festival. Sakakaba is telling all the fighters in Rizin, let's all get together, cooperate, and make this event together, kind of thing. You know?
Right.
Yeah. So I heard that Mikuru's opponent is, and I asked who, and they didn't want to tell me. They're like, "Well, this is going to be quite a criticism, so I prefer not to say." So I wonder who it's going to be. Right? I mean, any speculation?
Right.
Did you hear anything?
I haven't heard anything, but when talking about the opponent, I remember I noticed on social media, Juan Archuleta kind of threw his hat into the ring.
Okay.
And it was met with just immediate criticism and like vitriol from Japanese fans. Because Archuleta kind of messed things up. So when he first came to Japan, he actually he like went around, did a bunch of fan events and built a solid fan base.
Right.
But he did himself no favors by missing weight those couple times.
That's a no-no in Japan.
So when he like threw his hat into the ring about wanting to do that, everyone just like making fat jokes, talking about how he's not a serious fighter.
Right. I even read some article in Japan saying that Archuleta agreed to like $5 million penalty if he misses weight or something like that. He's like, "Oh, I'm ready to do that." It's $5 million, not in the US, but we're talking about like almost like 3.5 in USD, whatever. I don't know if that's true or not.
Mikuru might have even directly called him fat on social media or something like.
Oh, is that what it is? But here's what it is. One thing: if Mr. Archuleta really said that I'm ready to pay that money, I hope he has that money. Like for him to say something like that, it's like it reminds me of Ippei Mizuhara, who begged Shohei Ohtani to please cover me. I'll make sure I pay you back. You're never gonna pay back. You're never gonna be able to pay back. Right? So, but anyway,
I think he would just. Remember that one time? Oh my God, this had to be like 10 years ago. Was it like a Brazilian fighter missed weight deep and just like disappeared?
Yeah, and actually,
like,
it's a World
Series of Fighting.
Fighting in Japan, yes.
The guy just like ran away and nobody could find him.
No, we couldn't find him, but we did. By the time he came back to the hotel like around 9 p.m. after all like nights of touring, checking out the city. Here's one thing about it too, like weight misses, like from Japanese point of view, it's a huge thing, right? Because they're always into perfectionist. And so they also expect other side to at least pose like they really try to the end. So, but most of the time in weigh-ins, this is what happens. Like a couple hours before the weigh-in happens, usually us management gets the call from the matchmaker and saying, "All right, he's going to miss it. All right, how many more pounds? Blah, 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 blah." Right. So usually at that point, most of the time, fighter will stop cutting weight. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're like, "Okay, it's not good for the health reason, whatever that is." But if it's Japanese, they will do it to the very last minute. You know what I mean? They'll show up at the weighing place. At least looks like he really tried at the end. Training, like maybe like both shoulders by the corner, man, kind of stuff. But Brazilian American, whatever that is, non-Japanese, when they decide, okay, we're not getting weight, so we got to go to the weigh-ins, what they do, they wipe the sweat, put nice hair, getting ready to be on TV and show up. And of course, that kind of annoys the other side, especially a Japanese fighter. They feel like, "Oh, this guy didn't even try," So,
well, I mean, you can see it most recently at the one show in Japan, where Kaito's corner was just absolutely furious that his opponent missed weight. and then he then like tried to weigh in. He weighed in without them being able to watch it. Because I remember I went to a girls' S Cup like 10 years ago
Mm-hmm.
where Erika Kamimura was in it, and shoot boxing brought over some really muscular girl from I think Holland, and she missed weight, and she had to weigh in again. And you better believe Erika Kamimura was there with her entire team, just like staring her down as she weighed in to make sure she made weight. And then I remember the exact same event, Ham Sohee was there, and she missed weight. And what they did was she stepped on the scale with her clothes on, and then they escorted her to her room, brought the clothes back, put them on the scale to see how much the clothes weighed, and then determined that she had made weight by subtracting the weight of the clothes from what she was. So they're very particular about making weight in Japan.
I mean, face it, Japanese do make an extra big deal about their weight cut. They really do. And I've seen a contract. Like, for example, I think Legend Fighting Championship in China had this very interesting contract in a way. From the beginning, they will specify if you're a half pound over, you take this much penalty, but fight has to go on. If you're a pound over, you get this penalty. It was up to like maybe 2 pound over. Then if anything above 2 or 3, I forgot, fight will be canceled. So there's no discussion about that. So I kind of like that contract because you know exactly what you're facing. But even though, again, from the Japanese point of view, they would consider that contract to be not really honorable because you're already giving them room for the opponent to miss weight.
Right.
Like point is, you could miss by 2 pounds and just pay the money to win fights.
That makes sense. When people ask me about like Japanese culture and stuff, I mean, I'm not Japanese, so I'll never be an expert. But the way I describe it is they do really well when things are going according to plan. But once something goes not according to plan, like everything comes screeching to a halt and falls apart. So it's the same with weight cuts. Like you're supposed to make weight. The second you don't make weight, everything stops. Everyone freaks out. They don't know what to do. Yeah.
If that's the culture, they really should make that contract to begin with then. What the heck? I mean, you always have to have room for error. You have to be able to accommodate it, especially if you're selling tickets and making sure your own fans to come there, right? Not complaining. Yeah. So, I think we need to learn. They need to learn. But point is, it's a cultural difference. Even the pound over rules, many promoters in Japan still tells me that Japanese don't want to get it. They will not understand. They won't be able to accept it. They won't be able to swallow it. But you got to make them swallow. That's the bottom line. Because you know what? This is actually a very similar thing. The Japanese is this. Maybe it's an islander mentality, but sometimes they do reject any idea from outside Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? You know that. Like they end their excuses like, "Whoa, this is a Japanese thing. Don't come and tell me what to do. It's our internal issue."
Yeah.
That reflected that.
I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I do know from my experience, I think Japanese fighters tend to not cut as much weight as people from outside of Japan.
That too, right? So, especially back then, Right.
Yeah, especially amongst the female fighters, and when you compare it, so there's a lot less grace given for if you're trying to like bypass people by cutting more weight than they think is kind of normal.
Right. So I don't know if this issue is ever going to be solved in Japan. You know what I mean? I think you just have to make sure you're disciplined enough to make sure you cut weight, or just sign a contract on a weight class that you're comfortable making with, even though you screw up here and there during the fight week. You know what I mean? Kind of stuff.
So I have a question. I heard something interesting today. So I was talking to someone about the Rising Matsuri show coming up. Okay. Someone that kind of has insider knowledge, so to speak. Okay. And they were saying that a particular fighter is going to be on the show because a sponsor is essentially paying Rising to put them on the show. Is that kind of normal in Japanese MMA? If like a sponsor is really pushing a fighter, that the promoter will kind of listen and be like, all right, you're paying a lot of money. We'll put them on.
I can tell you the whole story about this, but not publicly. But my answer to that would be yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we can talk about it after The streaming's over.
I didn't
But
mean
it's
to put it on,
true. It
I didn't
is
mean to put
true.
it on the spot. I just heard that a particularly strong sponsor is wanting a fighter to be on the show, and so they will be on the show.
There is even
I mean,
particular sponsors who actually even manage fighters.
well, I mean, we know this happens because we don't know it happens, but we've seen potential examples of this in the past with Yogibo and Yachi. It was no secret that the head of Yogibo was a big Yachi fan. And it seemed like every event that Yogi was a big sponsor on, Yachi had a big fight on. So
Okay, well, here's what it is. I have used the word, quote unquote, come on, that's a backdoor admission to the matchmakers in Japan. Not only Rising or, well, okay, let's just talk about Rising. I have said that to Shingo before too, meaning these are the fighters who really doesn't have a record or any reason to be in Rising, but it's there. Why? Because it's either supported by one of the sponsors by Rising or even managed by one of the sponsors of Rising. And if that happens, but again, when you really think about it, right? I always said that Sakakibara is also coming from entertainment television world, and he's almost like a Fuji television. So, like, as a television producer, if the sponsor is recommending talent, of course you take it.
Absolutely. No, I'm not criticizing. I just thought it was interesting.
Right, yeah, but it's just that's right. It's MMA, it's a sports, but still entertainment.
Plus, I mean,
that in Japan, you know what I mean?
It's not a charity. The Rising's looking to make money. If they have a fighter that a sponsor likes and people think is going to be popular, they're going to put him on the card.
Think of it this way. I have expense of releasing my client so he can be with one of those sponsors managers so he can continue to fight for a specific promotion. And, because now I no longer can put him into the proper admission process, so let's go backdoor. But that's actually a risk, because if you go through a so-called quote-unquote backdoor admission to get a fight, and if you don't perform, if you lose, you're in trouble.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Because there's not much the sponsor can do if he or she wants to perform, right? And if he or she doesn't sell that many tickets or move tickets, then there's no reasons to.
Plus, there's potentially a worry that if you do that, then you're probably very in debt to the sponsor.
Right. But let's go back to Mikuru's a couple comments. I think we're Rising podcast picking I'm Yutaka Saito.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Didn't they fight before?
Yutaka?
I may be wrong.
I know he fought Iron, but so you might. I don't think so. Maybe, but Yutaka kind of makes sense because he's kind of popular, and he was popular enough to raise like 100K on crowdfunding to operate or open his new ramen shop, right?
Yeah, they fought. Saito beat him back in 2020.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So it could be the rematch. It makes sense.
Then he got revenge. Then he fought him again. So this will be the third fight.
Yeah, twice. Yeah, he's brilliant. Twice. Come on. Yeah. I mean, that could be the third matchup, right?
Well, if that's the case, I could see how people might criticize it because I think Saito hasn't been performing too well recently.
Oh,
but so there is the interesting potential. But there is the interesting angle of this being the rubber match.
And he is actually popular, so he does move tickets,
He is very popular. I believe he has his own restaurant now, like a ramen restaurant.
Yeah, ramen place. Yeah. Like he was able to raise like almost close to 100K on crowdfunding. That's pretty good.
At the New Year's Eve card, he had like a food truck, and he was out taking pictures with people. And I think he was honestly out there for like 9 hours taking pictures. He never left once. He looked exhausted at the end of it.
What's up with this ex or former athletes or fighters or talent tend to go into this restaurant business? It happens a lot. And my own statistic, majority of them fail.
Almost all restaurants fail in the first 5 years.
Yeah, or 5 or 3 years, 1/3 of that. Yeah, I heard that from the food beverage industry people. Yeah. In Japan, the competition is pretty tight, right?
Well, there's restaurants everywhere.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, besides the Yutaka Saito, what would be the other possibility? Even though, I mean, they were thinking about Chihiro or Yama, whoever that is, if they didn't lose it, of course, because
I
makes
think
sense.
the issue is that the way I see it going
Mm-hmm.
is because Hiramoto is out with an injury,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to want to rebook that Hiramoto Mikuru fight.
Yeah, probably New
So,
Year's Eve.
and since Mikuru is coming off of so many losses, like brutal losses, they need to kind of rehabilitate his image. So I wouldn't doubt if they kind of gave him an easy opponent just so he could get a
Right,
win
get him a
going into
win.
the Hiramoto fight.
Exactly. Otherwise, you can't build a fight against Ren on New Year's Eve. It's going to be New Year's Eve. I
Yeah,
don't think we'll be ready to fight before that anyway,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
And
they're
although,
gonna
publicly, Ren
find
is
someone
saying,
who has a name,
yeah.
someone with a name that they can squeeze a little bit of juice out of. Ooh, the
Yeah,
Hagiwara is a good guess.
I think Hagiwara and stuff because he just, won, right?
Yeah.
In like seconds. So maybe that makes sense, right? Because for some reason, Hagiwara is very popular in Japan.
Well, he's got the popularity because he was one of the guys they went to time and time again during COVID to just kind of help prop up the organization during that when they couldn't bring foreign fighters in. But I mean, at this point, though, I'd almost be afraid. I mean, it's kind of a difficult situation because Mikuru's skill set, he's not like the best striker. He's not good on the ground. So you need to put him against a striker that's worse than him. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's funny that he did have a good run in the beginning, and of course that it was match made in a way. I mean, he did take a couple good opponents, so I give him a credit for that. But I think it's fair to say in the recent years, a couple years, he's probably not really training full time.
No, I mean, why would he be? He has to be making a fortune with his other business ventures.
Right, and but I just been looking at his body compared to what he looked like 2 3 years ago. I mean, it's a clear difference. I mean, you can
Well,
tell by looking at the athletes like that too.
plus back then he seemed to be much more like cerebral about his fights. You could
Hmm.
tell that he studied a lot of fight film on his opponents, knew what they were going to do, had pretty good game plans in his fights. Where in this Yaman fight, I was just wondering, like, what the hell are you doing? This is like the worst possible strategy. And especially the Ren Hiramoto fight was also crazy. I'm like, why are you doing this? This is not the way to win this fight for you.
Yeah, exactly. But now for him, how to win fights, the method of winning for Mikuru is almost kind of diminishing to the point that what is he going to win a striking battle? Then 50% of rising fighter can hang in there with him, probably, right? In that weight class. And in terms of ground game, I don't know, right? I mean, so I think opponent's going to be agree with you somehow will give Mikuru a pretty sure win
Yeah.
because otherwise it really doesn't make sense. So although
Absolutely.
some fans are saying something like Keramo for Acheleta, it's just never going to happen because of the visa issue too, because it's too late to get a visa. And on top of that, right, it's just too risky for Mikuru.
Well, you're
And
also
you don't
mentioning
right.
Sakakibara was making comments about like how everyone needs to get together to help like build this card up.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's saying that, what he means is that there isn't going to be like a giant super fight on it selling tickets.
No.
So,
Because you will be surprised with some of the card that will be announced tomorrow because some of the guys who just fought is back in there.
yeah.
And I'm not talking about the guys who quickly won. Some of the guys went through the whole 3 rounds,
Yeah.
fights. And actually, some fighters never even thought about that. They started eating and then got a call from Rising. So they were like not panicking or weight cut. And there's a lot, it's going to be a catch weight on some of the fights.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it is going on right now. And I think in today's rising power, even though without a huge card, they probably can sell like 20, maybe even 30,000 tickets. But even that won't be good enough for Tokyo, though. You know what I mean? Because you look empty. So I think Rising's right now effort is try to sell extra 20.
Yeah.
And they need to come up with something.
Well, Mikuru still has a big fan base. I think the event will sell lots of tickets. It just has nowhere near the value of him versus Hiramoto.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be, they're saying it's like a comeback fest for Mikuru anyway. So, how you don't want to ruin the comeback festival. So this would be like one of the big singer making comeback and music fest kind of thing atmosphere, right? So
I feel like Hagiwara moved gyms to Tokyo and has been working a lot on his grappling, which potentially makes him a dangerous opponent for Mikuru if he can stop the takedown. Because when they last fought, he actually hit Mikuru. Mikuru was just able to get him down pretty quickly.
Yeah, but here's what it is, though. Okay, he is learning ground game, whatever that is, but it's going to take years to learn anyway.
Well, I mean, it's not going to take him years to get to Mikuru's level.
No. Exactly. So,
I don't mean to insult Mikuru too much. Of him and his brother Kai, I just think Kai is the much better fighter.
Yeah. So I think, I think it's fair to say Rizin want to get maybe 2 fights out of Mikuru, and that'll be it, which is this one and probably New Year's Eve. And after that, I mean, is it really necessary to bring him in? Because I think on the May, I think featherweight's going to have a big move, right? With the Kleber Koike against Shadowif. I mean, come on. What's going to happen with that fight is going to determine that weight class. And And another fight is Ota against Sabatiro. I think depends on who's going to win. That may be the next challenge for Naoki, right? So some of the fights are,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Well, I guess we can talk about Rising 50 a little bit.
Yeah. Let's go through it. Rising 50.
Rising 50 will be reappearing. Because wasn't Dabeck talking about he wants to go to bantamweight now?
Who?
Dabeck.
Oh, he was a bantamweight to begin with, and he was brought back to fight Mikuru at 145. So he went up to fight Mikuru at that time. So I mean, I don't know. I guess it makes sense, right? Because he's not that big featherweight, and if he's coming down to a bantamweight, sure, it's going to be interesting, and that could be a good opponent for Naoki next.
Yeah.
But we can talk about the Naoki first. And what do you thought about that fight, the main event?
I thought so. It's kind of an interesting fight that's difficult to judge because Naoki looked very dominant in the first 2 rounds. Especially in the first round, it was like Motoya couldn't do anything.
Right.
He was getting picked to pieces with the jab. And
I think that's the reason he won the decision too, right? Basically. Yeah.
Then the last round kind of threw a wrench in it because, it clearly had something happen with his eye. It swelled shut. And that clearly affected his performance in the final round. But to Naoki's defense, I mean, his grappling defense looked amazing. It's just that Motoya really tried to seal the deal. And one of the judges awarded it to him. But I was of the opinion that I think Naoki was so dominant in the first 2 rounds that probably carried the fight for him. I know they don't score for the round, but overall the fight, I felt like he controlled and dominated more of it.
Yeah, and also the Motoya's, the head triangle choke, shoulder triangle choke was not near finish. So he didn't really get to the point of close to, finish him out. So I think that really hurted him. And after all, sure, on the 3rd round, because of the takedown, he did a superior position for the almost entire round, right? But other than that, did he really improved? And the last 10 seconds of the rushes of punches, that's just for the judges. You know what I mean? It's for the impression. So he really didn't cause any damages. But again, like Rizin judging is very difficult. They always say they value on damage, right?
Well, so I would like to address the comment that We Are Rising podcast just made about our thoughts on the judging. It seems like judges were not looking at damage as much in the past. I was curious about this myself, so I actually looked through all of the judging scorecards, and I can tell you that of the 6 decisions on this card, damage points were awarded in 0 fights.
Yeah, exactly. But it's supposed to be value the damage. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I just, and they always talk about generalship and stuff like that. But it's
No.
very difficult to understand their judging criteria.
So I was looking at it because I was curious. No judge awarded any damage fights points the entire event.
Mm-hmm.
Of the 18 judgments, only 6 awarded aggression points, meaning every single fight was decided on generalship.
Right.
So if I'm training my fighter, it's just like we're preparing them for this fighting on Rising. All they care about is who controls the pace, position, and just that, and the where it takes place.
Right. So in that sense, Naoki control first 10 minutes and Motoi control 5 minutes. So Naoki control double the amount is what, right? According to generalship.
Right.
Right. So, and in terms of damages too. Okay. I mean, Naoki told me that he got hit by the overhand right on the first round. So midway through the first round, he couldn't see it already, which is hard to tell,
Well, eventually started. I think that the eye eventually swelled shut, but I couldn't notice it till really the end of the second round.
Mm-hmm. But he said he was bothered from the midway through the first.
But his eye was clearly damaged. But I mean, he was also doing damage to Motoya's face. There was a lot. He was bleeding, I think, from the nose and the mouth, and his eye was swelling shut too. So I just, outside of nearly killing your opponent, I don't know what you have to do to get damage points in Rizin.
Yeah, and you know what? Some fans always argues about, oh yeah, but look at the blood and look at the swollen, so he's more damaged. But I don't really look at their scars determine that damages. That's not really fair.
Well, that's not how the way that Rising judges it. Essentially, is did they do something that would have led to like a finish, that would have made it more likely that a finish would happen?
Well, then I think in that sense, I think one of the viewers just pointed out that I think you should remake this into the 5-round fights. Because if you do that, and the chances are, right, it might go into the finish, or maybe they still cruising and running out of gas. You see another boring 2 rounds to the decision. I mean,
well, it's true, but I think this was kind of brought up a while back when I think Archuleta tried to kind of pressure them to give him a 5-round fight against Asakura Kai.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, you may like it, you may not, Sakakibara has never been receptive to the 5-round fight.
You know what?
We'll see it in the future.
This is the mentality of Japanese promoters. All right, if you make title fights into 5 rounds, okay, what is it like? If you put 3 title fights, that's 15 rounds already. And Japanese would like to think it's a show, so you don't want this to extend so many hours. Or sometimes you put so many fights, so you don't want 1, 2, 3 fights to take 15 rounds out of this event time. So I don't think they're ever going to change that, to tell the truth.
I don't think they're ever going to change. And I didn't think about what you had said at the schedule. It's a very good point. But I know another reason is I've talked to a lot of people in the past, not so much recently, because Deep does the 2-round fights.
Right. So it's right.
Yeah, you talk about it. And the reasoning is we think that the fighters will put on a higher pace and they'll be more active and aggressive in a 10-minute fight than a 15-minute fight. That's the mindset about it that I've discovered.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And think about it. Let's say theoretically, Rising Otokomatsuri coming up. If all the champions are healthy, Sakakibara will book 5 title fights. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that would be 25 rounds among just 2 fighters, 5 fights. And as entertainment to the audience, I don't know if the ex-TV man like Sakakibara would like that.
Well, absolutely. And plus, I mean, I'm a big supporter of MMA.
Mm-hmm.
With 3-round title fights, these events are long. Like if you have to wake up in the morning and go out, take a 2-hour, 1 hour and a half train ride, get to the venue, sit down, watch 12, 15 fights.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot. And if the title fights have potential to be 25 minutes each,
right.
It's a long night.
Right. And remember, Japanese shows, they give you opportunity for winner to talk, loser to talk. Maybe if a sponsor comes and give you some present. You're talking about the post-fight, little ceremonies are much longer than what we see in UFC or the other promotions. So we're really looking at really long for 5 rounds. So guy like Mr. Saeki, he suggested, why don't you just use 5 judges then, like he does on his title fights? But I don't know if that's going to solve this judging issues.
No, I think the issue is that I think that I think a lot of fighters still don't understand how Rizin scores fights.
Yeah.
I've spoken to fighters, and I've spoken to foreign fighters that seem to think they're like, "Oh, I won that fight. I won 2 rounds to 3."
A lot of fighters says that. Yeah, I know.
And you're like, "Well, it's not scored by the round, right?" And you see like their like eyes get really big,
right?
Which is weird because I mean they must just not be paying attention during the rule meeting or something. But
well, it's funny. It happens a lot. Like here's a part of the problem. Like coaches are also busy too, so they do take care of a lot of fighters. So they kind of assume it's unified rules.
Yeah.
Then realize, okay, all right, cycle kicks allowed, kind of stuff. So they kind of forget about judging criteria because they kind of assume it's round must system instead of total round system. So I mean, I don't blame coaches, but point is the fighter should be a little bit more aware of what's going on, right? Because
I've been to Rizin shows backstage. They hand out a graphic in English that explains how it's scored. So, but
yeah, I mean, I'm saying not only in Rising, Pancras Deep, whatever, every Japanese shows I've been to, I booked some fighters too, or I've seen some fighters who had no idea about the rules till the rules meeting. Like they have 2 months to ask about it and they didn't. So assumption, right, is what they're killing them. But again, I always thought the damage is something that they really value the most, but it seems like it's generalship. So
I think they value damage the most, but the issue is you have to really hurt your opponent. In my mind, in my experience watching Rizin, you have to drop your opponent. You have to get a very close submission attempt.
Mm-hmm.
You have to essentially almost finish the fight to get those damage points.
Near finish, almost finish. Otherwise, you won't be considered as a clear damage.
Right.
And there's a question: do you foresee Rizin ever adapting unified judging to stop confusion? My answer to that would be no, because Sakakibara has always said this. He likes his rule system, like a total must scoring system. He always give a fighter to flip the entire fight and win the fight in the very last minute. I think that's the excitement about the fight sports.
I'll also relate this back to him talking about the ring, where I think Sakakibara is a smart promoter who's very aware that you should have a product that is unique and isn't the UFC and sticks out for what it is. And by having his own rules, having it in a ring, Rizin is a very recognizable product.
No, I totally agree. And because the MMA shows outside Japan kind of all look same. Yeah. And for a general fans who only watches UFC or MMA when boyfriend forces them to kind of stuff, they couldn't tell the difference between PFL and UFC or even LFA or anything. But if you see Rizin, not just because it's Japanese, let's say if you watch Rizin, some American fight against Brazilian, whatever, non-Japanese involvement, they would still recognize different product, even though referees Jason, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I totally agree. And as long as no athletic commission forcing them to, abandon that rules, I really don't see a reason to abandon it. And, Mr. Sakakibara, he's the type of person, I think, if somebody says, oh, that's never going to happen. Oh, that's not going to happen. He's going to get fired up. So he's going to, it doesn't matter if it takes 5 years, 10 years. I think his mind is, I'm going to try to convince the athletic commission that Rizin rules are good. You know what I mean? That would be his approach.
So that's what I was going to say. The only way I could ever see them adopting the unified rules is if they try to do a show somewhere in the U.S.
Even though I have a feeling they might even try to go to Colorado or some states, they might accept the rules. He's like that. And in a way, that kind of makes sense for marketing wise, because that creates more buzz and news.
Right.
Absolutely. I agree.
Smart.
Yeah. So now, besides this main event, which fight do you want to talk about? Because I wanted to ask.
I also thought the scoring was kind of interesting. I saw some people complaining about the scoring in the Suzuki Dopbeck fight, but I thought it was the right decision. I don't know what you think.
I agree. I totally agree on that one. Yeah.
I will say, though, that I think the people that scored it for Chihiro, I will say Chihiro made it a fun fight.
Yes, he did.
He never quit. He was looking for the finish. He was very aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
But what I noticed, he was almost too wild because like as he was eating so many shots,
yes,
especially in the first round, with like him aggressively coming forward, Dopik was tagging him up. I mean, Suzuki's lucky he had like a chin on him because he might have been in trouble.
I'm telling you this, Charlie, on the record, both Mr. Sakakibara and Sasahara is a huge pro wrestling fan. Huge. Mm-hmm. So this is the type of fighter they like. You know what I mean? Not taking risk of getting hit, still comes back and make it entertainment to the last minute. And that's what pro wrestlers were doing in the prior days, unless they get their butt kicked, right? I mean, that's what their duties were. And this is the type of fighter they like. You know?
No, they must love him. He kind of came out of nowhere, and he's delivered nothing but exciting fights.
Yes.
Even when he loses, it's very exciting. So, yeah.
I mean, I always thought that Chihiro is a good talent. He was the guy who came in with both good, in-depth MMA experience in Pancras, followed by good experience in kickboxing world. So I thought in the early years of Ren's career, although he lost to Hagiwara, I thought that Chihiro was the toughest, most difficult opponent he faced in the early part of his career. You know?
And it seems like now he's working out quite a bit with bonsai jiu-jitsu too. So, I mean, it won't be an overnight thing like you said, but it'll be interesting to see how that changes his game.
Yeah, but again, it's not overnight for him, right? Because he had the quite experience in MMA and in Pancras before he even came into the Rizin. And more than anything, I think he's a great personality. He's a good guy. Period. You can tell, right? So
that's the type of fight that they can put in front of casual fight fans.
That
don't watch much MMA. They can get their blood going.
Exactly. This is the type of fight that Sakakibara will utilize to market to the general public, especially in Japan. So yeah, I mean he loves it. And besides him, I'm hearing that they love Machi. What do you think about her?
I heard that. That's hilarious. You said that. I heard that today. I heard that the matchmaker is very into Machi. They're big fans of Machi.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, Machi, as we all know, she comes from deep.
Yep.
She's very young, and she's garnered a lot of attention. I mean, people like her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's got a lot of fans. And she's my one criticism of Machi would be, I do think she could probably make 48 kilo.
Yeah, probably.
But that aside, she trains with she's kind of freelance. She trains all over the place in Tokyo, but she trains with a bunch of really good girls.
Right.
She's got very aggressive grappling. And I mean, it showed in this fight. Striking, everything looked great. Mm-hmm. I will say her opponent, Park, was also very popular. She get a lot of attention from the Japanese fans. I think this fight, being the only women's fight on the card, got a lot of attention.
Right. I heard that Sasahara say that he wished he has 10 Machis and they will establish women division. And that's how much they love her,
Well, they love her so much that aren't they talking about doing a 52 kilo weight division now?
Yeah, but why? I would keep the super atom weight. That would be perfect weight for her, I think, right? Doesn't have to.
I've heard someone say that they don't like the 49 because it doesn't exist overseas. But I think that's actually the reason it's kind of cool.
I agree. And also, they made that weight class for Reina. Face it, right? That would be the perfect weight class. I mean, back in Pride, right? They made that weight class for Gomi. Right, 160, not 155, kind of stuff. So
I think Muhammad pointed out her opponent's gloves went for 100. They went for like Haku Nanamayan.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, Machi though, Deep. I don't know if people may not know, but Deep held this festival last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was like an outdoor festival where, unfortunately, I think it rained. But
right.
An outdoor event.
It was disaster. Yeah.
But one of the things that did come, they had a karaoke contest on it, and Machi took part, and it was clearly an event geared around her. And I think she got a lot of attention there. and she's kind of got like this. One of the problems I think with the women's division is there's a lot of like older veterans that have kind of been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Where Machi's kind of like this breath of fresh air to a lot of people. She's this young, energetic, kind of cute girl that's fighting. So I think she has potential to be very popular.
Right. But here's what it is, though. I mean, if I were Sakakibara, I would still stick with super atomweight. I mean, here's what it is. Strawweight is better because it exists in outside Japan, in global weight classes, whatever that is. I mean, who cares, right? I mean, from Rizin's point of view, maybe it's better to have those different weight classes. So, it would be kind of difficult to go to UFC sometime, right? In that sense.
I always liked it because it seemed like it was always doable to. You can always lure a fighter from either strawweight or atomweight to kind of cut the difference and go in the middle.
Right. And for Machi, definitely strawweight, she's too small. If you want to bringing in top fighters from outside, she should be too small for 115.
I will say she's quite popular, but she's also been given a bunch of chances, and she's kind of come up short several times.
Mm-hmm.
So Deep tried to get the Deep strawweight champion is Izawa, but they tried to give Machi an interim title shot, and she lost to Matsuda. And then when Matsuda relinquished the belt, I think they did another interim title match with her in Park or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And she lost again.
Right.
So they're giving her chances, and she doesn't always meet them. But this last performance of hers was very good.
Yeah, exactly. Here's what it is. I think, as you pointed out, that Machi's record, she has only beaten mid or undersized opponent. Yes, that's how they promote fighters in Japan. Right? So that's what I'm saying. It's better to keep super atomweight, but she's gonna have a difficulty at 115.
Well, I mean, just look at this most recent fight. Her opponent Park had a very good year last year. I think she went 3-0-1, but she's a 48-kilo fighter that they bumped up to 52K to face her. So.
Right. So for Machi, she's young. So if she's thinking about like UFC or sometime outside of Rizin, she could think about that a couple of years later. I think it won't be a bad idea to do 110 for a couple of years and eventually go up to 115 because you do need 3, even 4 years if you're going to move up 10 pounds on the weight class. Really.
Plus, I mean, her first Rizin fight, she fought Ayako Watanabe, and that was a very close fight. So I kind of like to see, and that fight I believe was at 49 kilo, so she can make the weight. I mean, if you look at her in the pictures, she got a little meat on her.
Yeah, I mean, here you go. It says Machi will get destroyed by even lower tier UFC fighters. I have to agree. Today, yes, she will at 115. That's what I'm saying. I think it should take 2-3 years to build her up.
Yeah.
She can get all the popularity and wins and experience and the money and rising first, then go to UFC if she wants to.
I mean, I think she's got the potential to be quite popular in Rising. I don't even think she would need to go to the UFC. And she can
probably, yeah. But here's what it is, though. For the fact there's a champion Izawa, and obviously the Rising wants Izawa Reina to happen. And that's not happening in May. They're probably trying to convince her to do it in July. If it's not July, whatever that is later on. Now, if they cannot convince Reina, they got to come up with somebody for Izawa. And that means there's only 2 cards left, either Machi or Shima. Both are actually a 105, right? So I don't see why you bang Machi to Izawa at this point, right? Because that's not going to make any sense.
Either result that happens is bad.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I have to say that they have to be careful about building a women's division there, especially for the popularity.
So the problem is they're clearly trying to book Rena versus Izawa.
Well, yeah, of course.
The problem is they keep falling through because Rena got injured and things like that happen.
Right.
But while they're waiting for that to happen, it kind of has placed Izawa on hold, and it means that essentially nothing can happen in that division in Rising until that fight happens.
See, that's the problem. Izawa is a champion; she's winning. She hasn't fought since New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Even New Year's Eve was not the real important fight, so-called like a big fight. So I think she's been waiting for this big fight against Reina for quite a while now. So That's then after that fight's over, what are you gonna do, right? You got to build another divisions or opponents, challenger, you know?
Well, I think he's always kind of expressed interest in moving up to 52. So with all the talk of 52, it's either because Machi wants to go up there, because he's out. I don't know what the real reasoning is, but one of them wants to. So, but I would like to see Machi. I mean, I'm all for young fighters doing well and rising, and if Machi coming to Rising means that they'll put more women's fights on, I'm all for it. I mean, she's fun. She's got potential. She just needs to get experience and bulk up a little bit if she wants to stay at 52.
Right, and bulk up slowly. She doesn't have to bulk up fast to 115. I mean, this is a talent that I think she kind of nourish, you know? I mean,
exactly, absolutely. Because I'm glad you brought that up, because this will allow us to talk about another fight. They're taking a similar approach to Ed Polo King.
Okay, I want to ask you about that. Yeah,
you better believe I was excited for this fight.
Right.
Because Rising has announced that he will not be in the heavyweight Grand Prix.
Right. He even said that he doesn't deserve to be in there, which I like it. You know, he realized that he still needs more experience, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because his physical gifts. So it was so funny to see him throwing all those kicks, because his leg reach is so long. Right. But what I liked about him was he moves very well for a big guy.
Yeah, he does. He does.
A lot of times, those big tall guys, they move real awkward, but he's very coordinated. And the fight ended so instantly. It looked like he was in trouble, and then he just rolled the guy over, got on top, ground and pound, over. Like, if he's in your gut, if he has full mount on you and is raining blows down, that's not where you want to be.
But you know what? This is the fun. Have you ever watched YouTube by what's his name? Saiki was on one of the YouTube channel, and he was talking about how he was telling Ryo before this fight, it's like, "Oh, you're gonna end up in hospital." Like, so you better have all your clothing packed, ready to go to hospital, spend the night, kind of stuff. I guess it's kind of teasing him. So then the fact that he scored takedown on him. So from it's like the point of view, it's like that takedown sort of demolished the stock of the Polo King. You know, like,
well, I mean, I think he's kind of the first person to acknowledge he needs to get experience.
Yes, and he needs to work on takedown defense, wrestling, all kinds of stuff, right? I mean, obviously, and and after the fight, Saiki apparently told Ryo that, "Oh, good thing you don't have to go to the hospital." You know? So it's like obvious that he was there to lose, right?
Yeah,
well, but he did better than anybody expected.
You could see Ryo was like smiling during the fight, because I think Ed Polo King kind of did something where he threw a ton of kicks. The kicks are exhausting.
Yes.
And Ed Polo King's, he looked pretty tired near the end of the first. And then going into the second, he still looked pretty tired. So I think he needs to get his stamina ready.
Right. And it's not like his hand speeds are fast either. And when you're like that lanky, like in throwing a lot of kicks, you are exposing yourself to takedowns. I'm telling you, the wrestlers will take me down pretty easily. Right. So he's got to work on that. And but he's an interesting talent, you know?
Well, if they can kind of build him up a little bit like they did with Sidario, it would be interesting. I'm not saying face him against pro wrestlers and a 50-year-old Minowa, but I'm saying find opponents that can help him level up. Yeah,
but they would have to match Minowa or some pro wrestler here and there. That's what they do. And I think since they're doing heavyweight Grand Prix and they're going to finish in September, right? I bet Sakage wants to create maybe heavyweight title in New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
To bring in somebody to fight this tournament Grand Prix winner. Yeah. You know, I agree, you know, because heavyweights are exciting to watch, right? When it's good. Yeah. So Sakage really wants that and he Rising, which makes sense. So I'm interested in who he's going to bring in for New Year's Eve. They were talking to Ryan Bader and all kinds of rumors circulating, but not many heavyweights available there.
Well, I always forget about Shibisai. When they announced Shibisai, I was like, oh yeah, Shibisai is a rising fighter.
Right.
I always forget about him. But they have a pretty good track record though of finding interesting heavyweights. At least in the past with their old heavyweight Grand Prix. So it'll be interesting to see who they find.
Yeah, exactly. So And also, you know what? Here's the, I want to kind of touch on this, but one of the listeners, all right, did they talk about Rizin hiring Michael Craven from New Japan Pro Wrestling? I mean, I hear that he got hired to work in the office, doing some kind of office work. So it's kind of interesting, right? Maybe he does something for the global market outside Japan.
Well, no, if you look at the website, Rising usually has like their job openings. One of the funnier ones was, I think, Sakakibara had an opening to be his personal driver. But they do have some positions open to people that speak English, and
Yes.
they almost are exclusively marketing roles.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be, if what you're saying is accurate, he's probably been brought over to help market them to the.
Right. Just face it, till very recently, every English was done by Shingo only.
Yeah.
And I'm sure his hands are way full, right? So they
Absolutely.
need English speaking marketing person. And obviously they got it because they start putting up those English marketing on X, right? Like to marketing, matchmaking, who do you want their next opponents, blah blah blah. So and he will take the part on those global marketing for Rising. It kind of makes sense, and telling you, I mean, if they keep doing in this space, and like I say, in Kagawa they sold out everything, so the brand is established. So I think slowly but surely, if they reach to the outside Japan, this could be an interesting brand in the fight sports.
Well, I was kind of nervous because when they were talking about going to Hawaii a long time ago, Rising didn't seem that stable during that time period.
No.
But it seems much more stable now. So this seems like a better time to actually focus on going outside of Japan.
Exactly. And I'm sure he's thinking Saudi Arabia instead of Hawaii now.
Yeah.
What's up there, right? I think everybody's looking at Saudis. And I mean, really, honestly, I tell that on record that if I were investor or advisor or whatever that is, I think investing on Rising maybe makes sense than investing on some fight promotion they're investing, right? I mean, yeah, there's a return for sure, where they're doing the business.
Really making money.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, any other fight you want to touch, or you want to move on to this Kuroda's contract issue with the K1?
Well, let me take a quick look down.
Yeah. There's another fight. Let's see.
I think that's fine. Those are kind of the big ones I want to talk about.
Right. So let's talk about this one. K1 champion Toma Kuroda exposed problem about K1 contract. Now, what that means is that he went up on the YouTube channel and started talking about there's a problem about K1 contract, which requires you to pay a penalty fee if you're leaving K1. And even though you pay a penalty fee, which is quite a large, you have to sit out like a year. You can't fight anywhere else. Now, it's so funny. Only in Japan, there's always a problem about leaving a promotions or leaving in the team. And they will immediately talk about, so how much penalty you have to pay. I mean, that's something it's so uncommon in this country. I've never heard of a fighter paying a team so he can leave the team.
There's so much stuff like that because I remember I bought tickets to a show a couple of weeks ago because a fighter I follow posted their fight got canceled because they were injured. So they're trying to sell so a bunch of the tickets they had sold, people canceled. So they're trying to find other people to buy the tickets, or else they'd have to pay the promotion directly for the tickets.
Oh, exactly. I've heard of fighters who got stuck with those tickets, even though she did not miss weight or he did not miss weight, any of that, and he or she ended up paying to the promotion on like a deferred payment plan because they can afford it.
But I mean, the proof is kind of in the pudding when it comes to K1. The number of fighters, it's like a sinking ship. Like the rats are fleeing. It just cannot seem to keep on any of their fighters.
Yeah. But here's what it is, though. One thing about the Japanese mentality is like they always think you have to pay penalty, then you can get out, And I've met so many, not only the MMA fighter, even boxers who got stuck into the bad contract. And their response is always like, well, can we pay to get out? Kind of stuff. Why do you always think about pay to get out? Like instead of paying to get out, why don't you read a contract, right? Because usually that's the case. Because I have experience of being asked by many fighters who is not our clients to review their contract. And I have done it more than enough times. and I red pen everything. I sat with them, and here we go, there you go, there. And it's always like, oh, I didn't read this. Oh, I didn't know that. Kind of stuff. Like there's a automatic renewal up to 2 years, and there's another year of exclusive negotiation periods, and I expect another 3 years you won't get out. They'd be like, oh, and I'll be like 40 by then, kind of thing. So. But again, it's sad, and I'll tell you on the record, and I can't name names. There's one big name professional Japanese boxers, and he wanted to leave this gym, and to convince it's okay for him to switch gym, he ended up paying like 100K to the gym, and then another 100K to the chairman of boxing association, whatever that, and it's just sad, yeah. And it's actually probably quite illegal. But that happened, and everybody knows about it in the industry. That's why they think it is kind of common to pay penalty.
Yeah. Well, I mean, outside of the contract, there is this thing where there's just way much, like, there's a perception that you have to be loyal to the promotion that brought you up. You have to be loyal to your gym and stuff like that. But with K1 especially, though, the timing of this is just bad.
Yes.
Because they're coming off of the Pettis, like, literally forcing his way into the ring and at a K1 show, talking crap about K1 and how much he hates the people running it. And now this is coming out. It just seems like everything coming out is just how much the fighters don't like K1.
Right. But it's funny, though, after this has been exposed, not only the fighters, even the reporters and journalists contact me and ask me, so what kind of penalty clause they have on UFC? How much they have to pay to get out of the contract? And I'm like, well, think about it, right? When you sign fighters, their value is different, like 10 fights later, right? So how can you determine the penalty fee now? Because you don't know the value of that fighter later. And they were like, that's right. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, you didn't know that Francis Ngannou was turning to be Ngannou, right? When they signed him. Right. So how can you put a clause on the contract that if you pay $10 million, you can get out? No, it never works that way.
All of a sudden, I mean, it's going to be a crazy thing where, like, if all of a sudden you become a hot ticket in town, you start selling a bunch of pay-per-views. If you try to breach the contract, they're going to take you to court and say, this is the kind of money we were generating from him. And this is what, if he doesn't fight, this is what he owes us, kind of to make us whole again.
Right.
So,
yeah. But here's what it is, though. I mean, I think I told you this before on this podcast too, but I've seen a contract where if you miss weight, fighter will be responsible. Or if you miss weight and fights gets canceled, fighter will be responsible to pay for his corner's flight money, hotel money, and also a production money for their promotional video for the fights. And even though this fighter is only getting paid $2,000, kind of stuff, makes zero sense. But majority of the Japanese fighters swallows that kind of contract and signs it.
Wait, did you see what Muhammad said? He just said that Pettis grabbed Miata by the collar yesterday at a press conference.
But yeah, he did, yes.
Dude, Pettis is a pretty funny guy. I've been enjoying following Pettis. His weird pictures of snakes.
He grabbed Miata by the collar and they yell at him and everything else. So fighters are frustrated, and if it's clearly frustrated, and they should be trying to do something about it, right?
Well, speaking also, I mean, what We Are Rising brought up with Koji having to pay to get out. I mean, there's also
exactly. Koji is another precedent he established that he paid to get out.
So, did you hear about his drinking and driving recently?
Yeah, I know. Rain is after him on that, like every minute.
What's so funny is that that like AI generator for Studio Ghibli came out recently, where you can like have it make something in the style of a Ghibli movie.
Yeah.
And people have been making images of Koji fleeing the scene, like it looks like Spirited Away or something.
Here's Koji is another precedent that he established that he paid to get out. So it gave them a reason for to K1, it's okay to pay to get out, and it's common for fighters to pay to get out. And I think it's the bottom line is this: I think K1 fighters is not getting enough money, so they all want to go fight for Rizin. It just makes better money. So if
They only go
K1,
to Rising, they want to go to One. If they want to stay kickboxing, they want to go to One. If they want to do MMA, they go to Rizin. It's wherever they can get paid.
then the K1 just have to establish their business model to be able to counter that. Or even though they lose their fighters to Rising or One, it's okay. Kind of they have to find a way to promotional running, right? I mean, you have to expect to lose fighters. You can't get mad at every single one of them, right?
No.
No. And if you want to keep a certain fighter who's a big name, then pay them well. So they won't leave. I mean, simple as that, right? I mean, money talks and BS walks. Bottom line, right? I mean,
well, I mean, you can't expect them all to feel like honor bound the promotion like Takeru did.
mm-hmm.
Plus, I mean, it really does sound like they're getting paid almost nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, though, the problem is this, and they take K1, the gym it's associated with K1 takes like 30% from the fight money. And on top of that, the fighter has to pay monthly dues. And the money they're making, I'm like, I wonder, like, do you make money? and stuff. But I'm telling this on the record, Mr. Ren Hiramoto, my client, he did not pay a penny to get out of K1. I went through the contract. I made sure those automatic renewal would not work. So I made him send a letter of intention to not renew the contract way before the deadline. But there was a clause in the contract there that even though we did everything by the book, he would not be allowed to fight for 1 year at any of the promotions. And that we couldn't beat it. Now, I could have go to the court and do that, but it's just going to take more time, 1 year. And it's going to cost money, legal fee. Right? So it makes sense for just sit out. And that's what he did. That's why he was bartending for like a year. So in a way, Ren did the right way. Him and I read the contract together. We find out the way to get out and not pay. What would he pay? Right? I don't get that at all. I mean,
idiotic.
It's idiotic. And because from promotion's point of view, they did make money on fighters too, right? So come on.
Tickets.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the fact that they're getting such a bad press like this, like actual fighters are grabbing a promoter's collar or talking like this on YouTube. I mean, the damage you get from this kind of bad press is way more than the little penalty money they were going to collect or they're thinking about collecting.
It's not even like because I mean, polar opposite. You have Rise, and they seem to have much better relationship with their fighters.
Do, and I'll tell you this on the record: Rise pays well. Yeah, and I got an offer for them to fight, MMA fighters to fight, and the offer was very good, and it's a fair offer, competitive Rise in pay. So of course, fighter would want to fight for them, right? I mean. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand this K1 thing. They gotta pay fighter well. That's probably the only way. Or make them active, so they'll give them opportunity to earn sponsorship money, or ticket money, whatever that is. They're earning any money from. So, yeah, that's too bad. I hope it's gonna change.
Me too, because it may not be the same as the original K1, but they do have the name and the legacy attached with it. So,
right, but again, you know how they announce the world tournament, whatever that is, but they're really not following, right? I mean, I don't know what the hell is going on out there. It's too bad.
No, I mean, just seems like bad news followed by bad news for them.
Right. All right, so I guess we talked for around an hour, and I think we covered everything we need to cover, right?
Yeah, I mean, when is the next Rising show coming up? It is the Otokomatsuri, is it not?
Otokomatsuri, and followed by Korea show that nobody's talking about. And by then, you'll be back in States?
Yes.
Good. So Charlie is coming back to US. Yes. So I think we should do another new season. We'll change a little bit of our podcast, right? We should do that.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to touch more interesting Japanese issues besides the fight sports too. Like today, did you hear about the Japanese actress who got arrested?
No, I did not.
Yeah, Ryoko Hirosue, who was on like Luc Besson's film and stuff like that.
Okay,
yeah. She got into auto accident, went to the hospital, and she ended up kicking a nurse there. And the police was there as investigating under the case, and they couldn't stop her. They arrested her then.
I did see about that. Yeah, I just didn't realize she was an actress. Was she in that movie Wasabi?
Yes, that's the girl.
Okay.
Wasabi.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. She's a very good actress, but she always had issues, personal issues, and there are a lot of rumors which I can't talk about. Now,
Yeah.
besides that, before you go, I gotta ask you this one question.
Mhm.
Did you look up in the Tokyo sky around 7 p.m. today? This
Oh,
big,
so Pink Sky.
the big drone show happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I live in Yokohama, so I couldn't really see it.
Oh, okay. It's from the Toyosu side.
Oh,
It's
cool.
the biggest drone show I've ever seen, actually, and better than what I saw in Central Park.
Oh,
And
very
this
cool.
drone show was all produced by my favorite singer, Mr. Yazawa. That was his way to announce the new album, and 2
You and
days.
Tenshin have that in common.
Yeah, so that's something very interesting, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So we should start talking about more besides the fight sports too.
We're talking about that just because for the viewers, I mean, especially with Rising, there is like a 3-month dead zone every year.
Right.
So to keep the podcast going, we were thinking of just including other interesting Japanese topics.
Right. And sometimes I will use like a fight sports references to kind of explain the mentality of a Japanese decision making, I would say, right?
Yeah. I've also been going to more pro wrestling shows recently.
Yes, we
So
should
that could
talk
be
about that
interesting.
more, and maybe even sports in general too, right?
Yeah. I'm going to a Kandori event next week. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Now, do you ever been to the baseball game in Japan?
I have. I go to Baystars games all the time.
Oh, good, because that's a different culture too, right? In Japan, the way
Oh
they
yes.
cheer. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
went to.
that's right. So you coming back to States soon, so maybe we'll do something different from the next show.
Yeah, and then we can also maybe adjust the time to one that's more friendly to the viewers as well.
Yes. Let's do that. Okay. It sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. So we do it again, and thank you for listening. And let's wrap it up. Good night.